Respect in Creation, and we're going to sing Lord of the Universe.
Sing with me. Mighty Creator, Namaskaram, Namaskaram. Lord God the Three in One, Namaskaram, Namaskaram. Lord of all lords, you are kind and gracious, Holy Trinity, Namaskaram, Namaskaram.
This morning, we want us to take a moment to acknowledge the four elements: wind, water, fire, and earth. They are essential to life. No one can live without any of them. They speak about who we are, where we came from, and what we need to survive and to thrive.
The four elements have been celebrated across cultures and religions and many generations. They do not belong to us. They are bigger and greater than any of us. And yet they connect us to one another and others in such a deep and intimate way. We are called to live with respect in creation. Let us celebrate God's presence with the four elements.
We thank you, God, for the gift of air, for cool breeze and brisk winds that refresh us, for blue skies and crystal clear nights, for the smells of every season: summer, winter, spring, and fall. For the smells of every season: summer and winter, spring, and fall. Most of all, we thank you for the air that gives us life. You offer your spirit to us with every breath we take. I have a fan in my hand. This is a gift given to the United Church of Canada by the Presbyterian Church in the Republic of Korea yesterday by the global partner. It says, life, justice, and peace. So it reminds us with the gift of wind, we breathe the spirit of life, justice, and peace into our lives. At your table, there is a fan. At your table, pick up the fan and around the table, gently wave the fan towards your neighbor and say to them, feel the breath of the Spirit.
God is with us.
Let us continue in prayer. A prayer for water. Thanks be for water that sustains the life of animals, fish, and plants, that cleans our bodies and blesses our souls, for the water of tears that wash away our grief, for the water of slides, lakes, and pools, and oceans, where we can play and have fun. Your water gives us new life. May we treasure that gift and share it with others. At your table, there is a bowl of water, and we invite you to pass that bowl around and invite your neighbor to dip their hand into the water and say to them, remember the waters that mark the baptism of your belonging.
prayer for fire. Thank you for fire and the many ways we can use it to cook our food, to sterilize and purify, to smelt ore and form metal, to warm our homes, and to make the most of the electricity we have. To light our way and enlighten our eyes. At your table, there is a candle, not actual candle, but electric tea light. But keep in mind that we all have a fire in our body. We keep each other's fire by looking after each other. Pass the candle around the table, and I invite your neighbor to regard the flame and say to them, "You are the light of the world."
A prayer for the earth. Thank you for the ground beneath our feet, your good earth that gives life to all, in a mystery we don't understand. Green plants spring forth from your darkness, canyons and mountains, plains and deserts. How infinite your imagination. We thank you for this firm foundation on which to build our lives. May we always love the land as you love it. May we care for this good earth that gives us such good life. At your table is a bowl of earth. We would invite you to pass the bowl around and invite your neighbor to touch that earth, sift it through their fingers, and say to them, "The earth is our God's. Come, let us worship."
I invite you to ponder the following question and share your answer with the person next to you. What elements are essential to who you are and why? We are going to give you 2 minutes. One person has 1 minute to share.
Hot mud flung high in the air. There, that's all the elements.
Good morning. So for this scripture reading, what we're going to ask is everybody to close their eyes. And when I say when we instruct you to open eyes, we want you to focus on the center stage, or you can focus up on the screen. But for this to work, we need everybody's eyes to be closed.
Alors, tout le monde devrait fermer les yeux. That's what I said.
Oh, sorry. Close eyes.
Yeah. All right. Aussitôt après, Jésus fit monter les disciples dans la barque pour qu'ils passent avant lui de l'autre côté du lac, pendant que lui-même renverrait la foule. Après l'avoir renvoyé, il monta sur une colline pour prier. Quand le soir fut revenu, il se tenait là, seul. Ouvre tes yeux, open your eyes.
And the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Close eyes.
Ferme tes yeux.
Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him on the lake, they were terrified. Open eyes.
Ouvre tes yeux.
It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. Close eyes.
Ferme tes yeux.
But Jesus immediately said to them, open eyes.
Ouvre tes yeux.
Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid.
N'ayez pas peur.
The word of the Lord.
Think about the time when the wind was against your boat. Perhaps your life circumstance or a ministry situation. When the wind was against your boat, how did you feel? Who was there with you, for you? What did you need most? What did you learn from the experience? Was there an unexpected visitor who showed the impossible possible? What impact did the encounter make on you?
Let's place ourselves for a moment in Bogota, the city where supposedly the possibilities, the future, and the connection to the world is possible. A place full of opportunities, big factories, businesses, technology, academic knowledge are at hand for those born in this city and for those who arrive here from other places. It seems the capital is the place for youth to be empowered, strong, relentless. Even so, there are emblematic places in the city where all possible inequalities live side by side. You stand in the traffic circle and you see young people driving from the best and most expensive universities in the country. Those who are part of the so-called good families. A few blocks from there, other young people, students or workers, because not all of them study or work, come from the middle-class universities. And if you look the other way, not far from here, young people with old clothes, empty stomachs, and minds charged with drugs to overcome hunger, cold, and misery. These words are not my own. They belong to Catherine, a young Colombian woman who participates in our training program for church leaders, a program supported by the United Church of Canada. Colombia is today, according to the World Bank, the second most unequal country in the Americas, seventh in the world. In Colombia, the government, the armed groups, and social organizations, including the churches, engaged themselves since 2015 in a peace dialogue to put an end to an armed conflict that affected the country for 60 years. Since the signature of the peace agreements, more than 360 social leaders have been killed, 60 of them this year, one every 3 days. Churches, human rights organizations, social organizations, and everyday people feel buffeted by the waves and feel the political and social instability as wind blowing against them and threatening them to sink. Yes, our brothers and sisters who have worked against compulsory military enrollment and for conscientious objection. Yes, our brothers and sisters who work for the full realization of economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights for communities affected by the armed conflicts. Yes, and our brothers and sisters who have denounced the deterioration of the environment in the hands of transnational corporations that have benefited from war. Yes, many of them people and partner organizations of the United Church of Canada. The passage we read from the Gospel brings us to the text of Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 27. In that text, Jesus sleeps on the boat when the storm comes up on the lake and the waves sweep over the boat. Jesus gets up and rebukes the winds and the waves, and the lake stays calm. In this passage, Jesus walks over the waters in the middle of the night, and there's no sign that the wind or the waves calm down. Because as churches, our faith sometimes calls us to raise our voices against the winds and the waves of hatred and injustice. But even then, there might be times when the storm does not stop hitting our boat. In those times, we do not stay quiet. As the master teacher taught us, we walk over the waters. And if we see our brothers and sisters sinking, we reach out for them, as Jesus did. And if we sink, we reach out for the community of faith that encourage and sustain us wherever that community might be. I will end with Catherine's words. So, if we talk about solidarity, the community of faith should be present there because one of its principles is to give itself for the others. If as communities of faith we took seriously our mission as stewards of the creation, if we understood that the community of faith is the workforce of God's reconciling, restoring, and community building plan, then we would not be inside our buildings discussing about admission rights in the church. We would not be alerting ourselves about how the world has taken so much power. We would understand that we have not lost power, but only used it to feed the hungry, physical and spiritually, to free the captive, to take hope to the sick, the segregated, and the abused. As young people in the communities of faith, we are called to make this a reality, to break established patterns, to link in harmony the scripture, faith, context, and reality. And we are called to take life, spread the gospel in tangible actions that transforms hearts both in the communities and individuals. Amen.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world. Le jour commence comme au tout premier jour. Un oiseau chante son chant d'amour et sa musique claire et magique devient cantique, ainsi l'oiseau. Le jour explose la rosée du matin, des roses éclosent dans le jardin. Toutes tes promesses, paix et tendresse, dans l'allégresse de jours nouveaux. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden softly. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
We come before you this morning in the four-direction prayer. Whatever language you speak, I ask that you pray in your language, and also that in my language, which is Nakota, Sioux Assiniboine, we lost our language, but I know that Wakantaga is the Holy One, Creator. So we come this morning calling upon Wakantaga to hear all our prayers this day. If you are able, please join with me and face the direction of the east. This way. From the east, the direction of the rising sun, we receive peace and light, wisdom and knowledge. As we face south, this direction. From the south comes warmth and guidance, and the beginning and the end of life. Facing west. From the west comes the rain, purifying waters to sustain all living things. And as we face north, from the north comes the cold and mighty wind, the white snows giving us strength and endurance. As we face upward, from the heavens we receive darkness and light, and the air of your breath, and messages from the winged creatures. Facing downward, from the earth we come, and to the earth we will return. May we walk good paths, O God, living on this earth as brothers and sisters should, rejoicing in one another's blessings, sympathizing in one another's sorrows, all together with you, renewing the face of the earth. Amen. You may be seated. I'd like to share a little story with you. 1986, I stood before the court in Sudbury. I came with other delegation from our National Native Consultation from BC to Quebec. We came with a regalia, proud to be of who we were as Native people. But I couldn't do that at the time. Throughout our life, we were told that was wrong. Our powwows, our dancing, our language is gone. But today I stand before you proud to be able to dress the way I am today. It was like 1986, I was freed. I was free to be who I am as a Native person. And today, I feel the goodness of God. So as we come together, we remember all these things. The apology took many, many years for our people to believe in ourselves and to know that whatever we do is good. And now our people are getting stronger and stronger, that they can do the beadwork, they can sew the dresses, and they can make the hair ties and the barrettes. So I come before you from the United Church of Canada, of where my baptism was as a child. I held on to the church because it was the church that helped me become who I am today. Thanks be to God for all of this. Amen.
And all God's people said, Amen.
Come and they can talk to us and come to the worship table if they have any questions.
You got it. Oh, you got it? You good? I've got it on here too for your others.
Sure, that would be a giant one.
Yeah, no, go.
Bonjour tout le monde. J'espère que vous avez bien dormi. I'm going to invite our hosts to make some announcements for us this morning.
Good morning. Okay, we have a whole bunch of announcements this morning. We have a bunch of announcements online and a bunch of them on napkins. We're ready to share. Today, there will be a Faithful Footprint conversation. That is the program about reducing our carbon footprint in the church, a Faithful Footprint lunchtime conversation in the dining hall. Look for the Faith and Common Good banner and come and learn more. Learn about all the different kinds of support that are available to congregations as we help to reduce our church-wide carbon footprint by 80%. For anyone wearing a name tag, if you were unable to bring your own laptop or tablet or are having trouble with one that you did bring, there are some laptops available for sign out over at the IT help desk. We'd like to acknowledge some of our invited guests who have just arrived today. Maha Othman of the Islamic Society of Kingston. And also Terry Horde Owens of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. The fence of which we've been talking is up at the back over by the fair trade area, and you are invited to write your prayers on those strips of paper if you have not done so already, and at an appropriate moment, go over and tie them on the fence. There's a gathering for all former and current students of the Atlantic School of Theology with Neil Bennett, and that is going to be tomorrow, Wednesday evening at, I believe it's 7:30, and that's going to be at the St. Louis Bar and Grill, which is just to the south, 1812 Simcoe Street North. And there's apparently a Facebook announcement going out about that. Surely God is in this place, help me notice. There are fridge magnets with that line, and so throughout the day you are invited to remember and to practice looking for God in our meeting. In the prayer room today at 12:30, noontime prayers, they're going to be praying for Regional Councils 7 and 8, and then at 7 o'clock tonight for Regional Councils 9 and 10. And tomorrow morning's 7:30 a.m., is that when the prayer is going to be held in Tagalog.
J'ai plusieurs d'autres petites annonces. We're good with paper napkin and Post-it ones, but please avoid toilet paper announcements. The sunset ceremony this evening will conclude with commissioners gathering in breakout rooms. Locations are on the GC43 website. Be sure to keep checking your GC43 website. Conference executive secretaries and presidents are asked to meet in the plenary today at 1:30 in preparation for this service. There will be a mass choir for the concluding worship service of the conference General Council, and if you would like to be in that choir, you are invited to come to a rehearsal on Thursday at noon in the yoga room. I have no idea where that is, but by Thursday maybe you will. The conference president, Wendy Loudon from Newfoundland and Labrador, would respectfully ask that we use the full name of our beautiful conference. Many have just been using Newfoundland. Lloyd, over in table number 6, has a comfortable chair for auction to the highest bidder. For use from 9 a.m. until noon, proceeds going to the Mission and Service Fund. I don't know. I think this is going to be a record-breaking M&S thing if anybody else is feeling the way my back's feeling. A couple of lost items. One phone, brown cover. Betty Kelly at table 2 has lost a brown phone cover. Gloria Churchill has lost an LG phone charger somewhere around the SW rooms, and she is at table 11. And from the lost to the found, Marjorie Wright from St. Albert, Alberta, we have the bag with your book room purchases over at the info table. And finally, I don't know if you caught the news story of the cats that were caught trying to swim across Lake Ontario. The one cat was named 123, and the other cat's name was 123. Goodness knows why they decided to swim across the lake. But sadly and tragically, only one cat made it to the other side, and that was 123, because unfortunately, 123 cat sank. We've got a lot ahead of us. I hope that you have more endurance than the latter cat. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. That's it.
Merci, je pense. Alan Buckingham's going to just give us an introduction to the business that we're going to be undertaking today.
I'm going to try and step away from the podium so I feel like me again. I don't often hold notes when I speak, and I just wasn't. So I hope this goes a little better. I'd like to start by thanking you for yesterday, for your patience, for your humor, for your feedback, and for your generally polite criticisms. Some things took more time than I had planned for, so you were late and probably feeling hurried as you started doing a thing that most of you have never done before and don't really know how it's going to work or how it's going to feel. I apologize for that. The facility logistics, while improving, are still not where we expected. We continue to work with that, and I am sorry that there are still issues. While we are still unable to get larger rooms for today's listening sessions as we had hoped to be able to do, we have been told and we're trying to ensure that there will be some 20, 30 extra chairs in each room for today's sessions. And my hope is that makes it a little more tolerable. I know it's still not acceptable. Or que peut-être Larry, il y a personne qui veut que tout va bien plus fort que moi. There is nothing I want more than for each and every one of you to go away from here thinking, this process rocks. It was amazing how we were able to have some great discussions and make some faithful decisions. I am not anticipating that most even, but definitely not all of you are there right now. Please continue to be skeptical, but also please continue to have faith in the process and to participate fully. Vos critiques me fait travailler plus fort. J'espère de vous convaincre. Please know that while we may have lost some discussion time yesterday, discussion time is, to me, probably the most important part of the process. If you need more, we will make every effort to give you more time. Though it feels like we've been here forever, we've done like 2.5 days of 6. I am not close to stressing yet. I have heard and read multiple comments about feeling that discussion sessions were disorganized and couldn't have been helpful. That their group never came to consensus on something, it must have been doing it wrong. And though they doubted too at first, after reading your comments and synthesizing what was there, the facilitation team felt they had generally the right amount of information to get a good sense of the group conversations. They don't need you to come to consensus, though it does. I mean, if we all agree, it makes stuff easier, but that's not what they need. 5 groups affirming something, with 6 groups with many people saying that it's probably reasonable, gives direction. 2 groups affirming, 5 pretty evenly split, and 3 feeling now isn't the time, says something. So while not all groups got to everything, the facilitation team felt that they had enough information from the groups that did get to everything to still come before you with suggested ways forward. They do, though, have one real ask for your groups. If you can comment, however briefly, on each proposal that's there, that would be appreciated. Things like, didn't discuss as general theme overview covered it. Of course, just do it. No thanks. Not interested in discussing, not really relevant. A little direction is appreciated. Okay, so when they present their report, which you can find in the facilitation group reports section of the digital workbook, the process will go like this. They will present their general notes on what they heard in the conversations. They will then report a summary of what they heard and their suggested way forward for a proposal or multiple proposals if they felt they could be dealt with together. And the moderator will ask if you feel they heard you correctly. This means, does their report accurately reflect your experiences and understanding of the conversations? And so the conversations probably weren't available in the workbook until like 9 or 9:30 or something like that. But you keeners, I know, are there, we're looking, and you found them, and you could go through, and there's 37 pages or something of notes when you combine them all together from all the discussion groups, and that's all there. We will indicate our feelings on how they did with our clickers. The moderator will then ask if you are ready to go to a motion with the wording suggested. Again, indicating with our clickers. If you are not ready to go for a motion, direction will be sought. For example, do you want to make some brief comments and then have refinement by the facilitation team? Or do you want more discussion time, etc.? Now, it's important to remember, more discussion doesn't mean we'll necessarily come to a different outcome. Though with new information especially, it can. If you are ready to go for a motion, it will be moved and seconded, and we will follow parliamentary procedure. Please remember, if you wish to make an amendment, you need to bring the wording to the business table so we can make sure we get it right. Do you generally feel like you have a sense of what we're going to be doing? I need some nods. Yes, thank you. Okay. And though right now it's the only item in the folder, so if you go to the workbook and you look in the facilitation group reports, there's only the one thing right now, but it's also pinned to the top, and there's going to be more, and we're going to pin to the top the one we're talking about so it's easier for you to find. Yeah? Sweet. Okay, I'm going to invite up, oh, they're already here, ready and waiting, these lovely people. Hewitt Holmes and Betty Kelly are representing the facilitation team, and I'd invite them to come and give their report. Yeah.
Thanks much, Alan. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm here with Betty to present what we have heard under the theme governance. And so we would like you to follow with us in your notes or just listen as we share with you. So we heard a healthy conversation on governance, and we want to thank you for that discussion in the groups and for the active engagement on this important issue. The discussion groups said that governance is about decision-making, accountability, transparency, accessibility, and keeping our vision and mission clear. It's how we relate, it's how we relate, but not how we rule each other. It's conciliatory. It has both organizational and theological implications. There was concern from some marginalized groups, indigenous and other ethnic ministries, about the impact of the shifts in our communities. There was also concern for the potential of losing our voice for social justice and representation when it's important. Regional, different groups ordered lay. When governance creates burdens, isolation, confusion, governance is no longer serving us. It's important to know the difference between governance and management. Governance sets the framework and management gets it done. It seems these proposals deal with both governance and management. Strong communication is needed, and there is need for trust in a time of great fear. And so now I take you through the first proposal, ANW02, constituting of a meeting. What we heard, there was acknowledgement that there are pros and cons, concern that emails could create miscommunication, ineffective communication. Prior consent of higher court of the church can cause confusion and concern. And some commissioners experience this already happening in some context. Email is only appropriate for yes, no votes. Email must be minuted if we move forward, requires explicit caution if relates to anything confidential, and would require rules for implementation. Concerns about consistency with the theological implication and how and where we say the Spirit moves, and should be reserved for conversations that don't require deep discussion or conversation and reflection. Requires accessibility to technology and should be the exception, not the rule. General, we heard affirmation for using this process in limited circumstances. There is no consensus from the discussion about how and when this method of meeting, voting would be used, affirming that it would be used for smaller matters and would not be normative. If you scroll up. So therefore, we are suggesting that the 43rd General Council amend the manual to allow a meeting by email in exceptional circumstances with clear parameters and policies to be developed by the General Secretary.
Right, thank you, Hewitt and the facilitation team. Friends, I'm going to ask you a question in a moment, so get your clickers out because you're going to have to click yes or no to the question. The question I have for you is, based on what you've just heard from Hewitt, do you feel that the facilitation group accurately captured the conversations in the discussions? So you're not voting on the proposal. Simply, did the facilitation group hear and accurately capture your conversations? So if we could have the slide with the yes, no. Get those clickers ready. If you feel that they did, click 1. If you feel they didn't, click 2 now. Oh, hold the phone. Do over, do over. That's okay. So we're going to, okay. So click now. All right, 96% of you feel that the facilitation group heard you. And so then I'm going to ask you another question. Keep those clickers out. Are you ready to go to a motion with the current wording, with the wording that Hewitt presented? Are you ready to go to, we're not voting on it, simply, are you ready to go to a motion with the wording that has been presented? Please indicate yes or no now. All right, then 95% of you are saying you're ready to go to motion with this wording. So there's a small, are we asking for a mover and seconder, or are we doing the Nora and Larry? So here's how we're going to do it. Nora and Larry are going to move and second everything that comes from the facilitation team, moves us right along. So this is now a motion that is moved and seconded that the 43rd General Council amend the manual to allow a meeting by email in exceptional circumstances with clear parameters and policies to be developed by the General Secretary. We are now in a time of discussion. Is there any discussion on this motion? If so, please move to a microphone. And I recognize microphone 3.
Andrew Hecker, Saskatchewan Conference, and I'm actually happy that I'm the first one speaking this morning. I stand on a point of privilege, and more to the point, I stand on a mountain of privilege. When you look at me, you can see clearly there is no privilege I don't have. And beyond that, I'm trained as a performer, and this isn't my first general council. And these microphones are still intimidating to me, with the cameras and 500 people in this room. And I get to thinking about the last General Council, which was truly life-changing for me. And I remember a moment where someone had asked someone to go to the mic for them and interrupt because they were so intimidated by this, but they needed to speak. And I keep wondering, year after year as it comes up again and again, how much wisdom this court has missed because of how intimidating it is to stand up here in front of this many people. And it almost knocked me off my chair yesterday when from the microphone we heard, "I'm scared." And even my heart is pounding. And the scripture that Miriam lifted up to us was thundering in my head saying, "No, you do it." Because I've been thinking we should offer a few people that will go up to the microphone with you if you're afraid. And I thought, I should check with someone to make sure that I'm not just crazy. So I went to Cheryl Jourdain, and my new best friend said, "Yes, you're crazy, but it's a good idea." And so there are a few of us that I've talked to. My new best friend Cheryl is at table 11. Everybody's friend Kathy Hamilton is at table 61. I'm at table 60. And if you would like someone to go up to the microphone with you, for whatever reason, to hold your hand, to interrupt, to introduce you, because it wasn't that long ago that I got up to address a meeting and got my own name wrong.
Andrew, can I ask you, are you speaking to the motion?
No, it's a point of privilege. But that's what I have to say, that we're here for you if you want someone to stand up to help you speak.
Thank you. All right. Okay, yes, I see that we failed to have our point of order mic, but we'll call number 2 our point of order mic. So if we could have number 2.
Yes, thank you, moderator. The motion. Oh, sorry, thank you. Bill Sheaves, Bay of Quinte Conference. The motion is moved by the General Secretary, and I don't believe it's appropriate that a motion be moved by a person that has an action that is going to be involving themselves.
It wouldn't be the first time, Bill.
I'm sorry, your mic's not on.
Yeah. It wouldn't be the first time, but I'd be really happy to have a different mover and seconder. So.
Well, I'll definitely move the motion
right.
in your place, if that's fine.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So the wording has not changed on the motion, but we have a new mover. It's moved by Bill. I didn't catch your last name. Which is a helpful reminder. If you're ever moving or seconding anything, make sure that the business table gets the spelling of your whole name.
Yeah, Sheaves as in bringing in the...
Bringing in the sheaves. Thank you. All right. I recognize microphone 1.
Kathleen James Cavan, Saskatchewan Conference. There was one piece that didn't get represented in the notes from our section and then didn't make it into the facilitator's report, and that was with respect to this motion that an email vote be ratified in a subsequent face-to-face meeting. And I would like to propose that as one of the policies that might be considered by the General Secretary, or if the court feels necessary, could be an amendment to this motion.
Are you proposing an amendment, or are you wanting to just offer that wisdom for the consideration of the General Secretary when developing policies?
I'm going to go for an amendment.
You're going for an amendment?
Yes.
So can you please share with us the wording of that amendment and then get it to the business table?
Yes. Do you want me to speak it now?
Please?
Yes. All right. In exceptional circumstances with clear parameters and policies to be developed by the General Secretary, including a face-to-face ratification of the email vote.
Okay, thank you.
That work?
So at the end of, after General Secretary, including a face, she's going to write it down and bring it to you.
Yes. I need a second.
But just so that we can begin discussing the amendment, because that's what we do now. Are you up here? My understanding is it will read, including ratification at a face-to-face meeting of the email vote.
Can I say subsequent before meeting?
Please.
Yes. I need a seconder.
Wayne Sanderson, I'd second that motion.
Okay. So now we're going to get that wording up there on the screen for you. But we are now speaking at this point only to the amendment. So if you would like to speak to the amendment, which is to include within the policies that any email decisions, any votes that are taken at an email meeting would need to be ratified at a subsequent face-to-face meeting. Microphone 3.
Christiana Black, Bay of Quinte. I would speak against the amendment simply because the whole point of doing this is that face-to-face is so very, very difficult, and that often we need
No clapping, please.
Often we need to deal with matters in an exigent manner, and that's precisely the point of this. I recognize the need to affirm that we have made decisions when we aren't face-to-face, but it's it's a point of incredible privilege, as far as I'm concerned, for people that can meet face-to-face easily to require this.
Okay, thank you. Are there, microphone 2, are you speaking to the amendment? Okay, microphone 2.
Ellie Moyer, Montreal and Ottawa Conference. I agree with what was just said, but I also feel that if you're going to go down that road, you need to have some sort of a time frame involved. Speaking from my own personal situations with church meetings, we sometimes go months without having one. So if there's going to be a face-to-face ratification, we need to have some kind of a time frame involved.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Alison Cartwright, Alberta Northwest. I was the person who was speaking for this proposal to the conference. The whole point is to make decisions in a timely manner. Waiting for ratification when it's minus 40 can be very difficult. Another feeling is that face-to-face is actually very new in the 2,000 years of our church, and that the Holy Spirit cannot be confined by time or space. So the Holy Spirit is with us as we do those emails. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Heather McClure, Montreal and Ottawa Conference. I would speak in favor of the amendment, but would offer a friendly amendment to the amendment. Hold on. If it's friendly to the mover, then it shouldn't be a problem. Rather than face-to-face, could it not be the next meeting of that court or something? Because many courts meet by teleconference or web conference, and that we accept, so it gets around the need for the face-to-face. Okay.
When they're done this? Okay. Is that received as a friendly amendment? Microphone 1, please.
Where's my seconder? It is by me, because it's simultaneous if it's in an electronic setting.
Okay, thank you. Point of order, microphone 2, please.
Point of order. I'm concerned we're getting into actually writing the policies and procedures, and that would be concerning to me in the sense that we're going to spend a long time coming up with the policies and procedures that we're asking someone else to do very in-depth work on. So my point of order would be that I think the conversation's starting to get out of order.
Thank you.
If I could speak to...
Hewitt, who has heard from all of your discussion groups, has some input to share.
Yes, from the facilitation team side, we did hear that comment and we had taken note of it, but that comment was not a comment that was expressed by the 13 other groups. And so we felt that that piece would have not made a substantial difference to the amendment that, to the proposal rather, that we have brought before you. So that's what the facilitation team feels about that particular comment. And it is that we did hear you, but we never got the sense from the other groups that that was something that they wanted to be a part of this proposal.
Okay, thank you. Now, friends, I know we might, well, I'm sure we all have opinions on this subject. My hope is that if you want to speak to something, you're going to say something that hasn't been said, not to affirm something that has been said. So my question is, anybody standing at the microphone who is wanting to speak to the amendment, are you raising an issue that we haven't heard, or simply supporting the gist of something that we have? So if you feel like what you've said, what you want to say has been said, you don't need to say it again, but thank you. If you're still at the microphone at this point, I'm trusting you have something new to say. So microphone 3.
Hello, Maggie Norlander from Bay of Quinte Conference. And about the emails, just because you can do meetings by emails doesn't mean that you're going to have to. Doesn't mean that just because you're allowed to, doesn't mean that if the meeting's important enough that you consider it not higher than just having a couple of emails going back and forth. that means that you can say, okay, we'll have a phone call about this or some other communications.
Thank you. And microphone 1, and yeah.
Stephen Sparks, Alberta Northwest Conference. Just one point that has not been mentioned. There are some parts of the country where face-to-face is not technologically possible. And I don't think that's an assumption that everyone is aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Friends, I'm going to ask if you're ready to vote on the amendment at this point. All right. Thank you. So I know some of you are still at microphones, but I think we're going to take the question on the amendment. This is just on the amendment, not on the whole motion. So get your clickers out. And the question is, are you in favor or opposed to accepting the amendment to include the need to ratify email decisions at a subsequent meeting of the court? If you're in favor, you'll click 1. If you're opposed, you'll click 2. Please vote now. So that motion is defeated, 73% opposed, 27 in favor. So now we are voting on the original motion that we amend the manual to allow a meeting by email in exceptional circumstances with clear parameters and policies to be developed by the General Secretary. Are you there as microphone 2 or as point of order? We have to get clear. Microphone 2 is only point of order, so only go there if you've got a point of order, which takes precedence. So go ahead.
Moderator, I have a procedural question about the vote that was just taken. Does defeating that amendment mean that, Murray Spear from Alberta Northwest. Does defeating that amendment mean that the General Secretary can now not include that proviso in the policy?
No, it doesn't mean that at all.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion on the motion. Microphone 3.
Rose Hannah, Gascon Maritime Conference. A question really for clarification. Who would determine whether circumstances were exceptional? Would that be the body conducting the meeting?
My understanding is that the policies that would be developed around that would help to clarify what the circumstances would be. And then, yes, there would be discernment if the situation met those policies, requirements. Microphone 1.
Cynthia O'Connell, Toronto Conference. Just also a question of clarification. The motion doesn't say a meeting of which body, or any meeting, trustees, official board, session, Sunday school. I'm just wondering if we want clarification on which group is making decisions in this motion.
That can be dealt with again in the clarification and the policies, but I think the intention was it would be any meeting of a committee or council of a community of faith. Thank you. Microphone 3.
Ryan McNally, Bay of Quinte Conference, and you'll see I brought my support person Cheryl with me. Question of clarification, perhaps for the General Secretary or our legal counsel. Are there any issues at law with conducting meetings by email that you are aware of?
No, I think we can make our rules. We'll make them as wisely as we can.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Microphone 1.
Elizabeth Morrison, Maritime Conference. I'm speaking against the motion on the basis that I think it needs to include that the General Secretary be encouraged to pursue consultation on the content of the policy, and to that end to include that it would behoove faith communities intending to use email as a decision-making tool to decide prior to the use of such at a full meeting.
Sorry, when you're speaking into the microphone, you actually have to angle it towards your mouth because we're having trouble hearing you. And I think we need a titch more sound in the monitors up here, please.
Sorry.
Can you give us the gist of that again, please?
There's two issues. The first is that the General Secretary be encouraged to pursue consultation prior to setting the policy, and that the policy should include that the decision to use email in an emergency situation be decided and be approved by the entire council or group prior to any potential use. I'm talking about at the faith community level.
Okay, so that's wisdom for the court,
I would be voting against the motion as it stands without some kind of an inclusion of those content.
So are you wanting to propose an amendment? I'm aware we've said that there would need to be policies developed, and I think folks need to know that whenever policy is developed, it's never an individual who just makes that up. But there's always a process of consultation. There's always, if there's any potential for legal ramifications, always the lawyers are consulted, and the best wisdom of the church is drawn on to come up with the policies and the framework that would then be offered to communities of faith. That is, whenever it says to be developed by the General Secretary, it's a given that that's how that happens. And how could you know that? So that's why I'm telling you that is how that happens. Nora doesn't just sit at her desk and make things up. So I don't know if that helps you or if you feel. But again, I want to be attentive to what Brian raised, is that what we want to do is set direction and then trust the folks whose job it is to implement that direction, that they do that faithfully and with integrity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3.
Deborah Schneider, Toronto Conference. Just a suggestion for the Secretary to be considering in this motion I speak in favor, that it include email, but also include such online tools as something like the use of SurveyMonkey or online survey tool for voting.
Okay, so again, wisdom for the policy direction. Microphone 1.
Okay, so I have 3 quick things for the wisdom of the court. 1, for all of you worried about security concerns, there are securely hosted email servers. They exist. Gmail is not the sole option. 2, for everybody who is worried, say you do not have adequate internet access, which is a different problem, or you are able to meet in person enough that this seems ridiculous and pointless, this proposal is not designed for you. This is designed for people who are too far apart. And 3, we aren't writing it right now. So, for everyone who is trying to write the proposal, thank you, your wisdom is very appreciated, but we have a lot of other stuff to do. So I'm sorry, I don't want to be mean, but I'm sorry.
Okay. And please, let's avoid clapping, thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else at microphones, so I'm going to call the question. So get your clickers out. And please vote whether you are 1, in favor, or 2, opposed to the motion that is before us to amend the manual to allow email meetings in exceptional circumstances and etc. Please vote now. And you have voted 95% in favor of that motion. Microphone, point of order, Mike.
Moderator Ross Bartlett, Maritime Conference. Just for the information of the whole court, I wonder if you could clarify when the decisions of the General Council come into effect. because we're going to be making lots of decisions this week. All of them are going to be wise and good, I'm sure. When do they come into effect?
Excellent question. Thank you, Ross. Nora, over to you.
I think they come into effect right away. Yeah, you know, it used to be we got to wait for the record of proceedings, but you know, that was from a time when we didn't have public notice immediately. Yeah. Legal counsel's telling me something. January 1. Yeah, so it'll be in our closing motions, Ross. And typically in the closing motions, I guess it'll say January 1, so if the court wants to change that, it would be different from that. Thank you.
And I see somebody at our point of order mic again.
Bob Fillier, BC Conference. Over in that part of the room, the DOTS system was not working again, even though we were frantically pressing our button and flexing our thumb muscles. So I'm not sure if that is an accurate reflection of the decision in the court.
You recorded 327 out of how? That's the full amount. So maybe your little clicker lied to you, but your vote was recorded because we had 327 votes. Thank you, tech team. Well, shame on those clickers. No more lying. And I'm going to turn it back to our facilitation team. Thank you.
And good morning. I'm Betty Kelly. I'm the second person on the facilitation team that you get to see this morning. A couple of things that we want to mention, and it's been very helpful to hear the discussion from the first proposal because it lets us know where we haven't been quite clear enough as yet. Want to tell you just a tiny bit more about our process. It really was a collective decision where all 5 of us read through everything that you submitted and then tried to distill out of that what it was that the majority of people were saying, but really were intentional about not losing the other voices, tried to capture as much of that as we could in our preamble notes, but it would not have been helpful to put everything there or we would be here till after lunch. What gave us real confidence and assurance as we were doing our work, or some confidence, we are very aware of what a huge responsibility this is, but we were assured again and again that the full file of all of your discussion group notes is there and being maintained. So for example, when it's a question of developing policy, the General Secretary will have all of those suggestions to consider so that we were hoping that we don't need to name them again. But we're all learning how to do this process together. So with that, as a bit of a preamble and a bit of a caveat, let's talk about ANW 11, UCW representation on regional councils. What we heard, the summary was that most groups questioned the appropriateness of General Council directing the regional councils in this matter. There was recognition by almost all groups of the historical and the current importance of women's representation and the value of the UCW. Corresponding membership was suggested as a possible option. Most groups did not communicate strong support for this proposal and felt that the matter was best left for the regions to decide. So the suggested way forward, that the 43rd General Council take no further action on proposal ANW 11.
All right, thank you. So you have the report from the facilitation group. Clickers out, because I'm going to ask that question again. Do you feel that the facilitation group has accurately captured the conversations from the discussion groups? So have they heard you? If you feel that they have, you're going to click 1. If you feel that they've missed the boat, you're going to click 2. So please indicate now. 92% feel that the facilitation group has heard you accurately, so now I'm going to ask you again, are you ready to move to a motion? We're not voting on the motion, but simply are we ready to move from proposal into a motion with the wording that the facilitation group has provided, which is that the 43rd General Council take no further action on proposal ANW 11. Please indicate your preference now. And 97% are confident that we've got the wording right. So I'm now going to, this time I'm going to ask Nora and Larry. Not ask, but Bev Kostachuk moves and Larry Doyle seconds. That's going to be our default. That the 43rd General Council take no further action on proposal ANW 11. It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no one moving to a microphone, then I'm going to call the question. Get your clickers out. Hold the phone, hold the phone. Sorry about that. I couldn't see you over there. Microphone 3.
Pat Whitten, London Conference. You stuck me in the corner.
Okay, I'll do this next time.
I come to you as one of those UCW types. I think at the end of the last General Council, when the women met at the National UCW gathering, they felt it was a great disservice when the motion was worded that you take no further action. In our discussion, I understood that some of the information that came was that the motion was ultra vires because it wasn't up to this level to make that decision. It should be up to the region. I think that the UCWs could probably understand that better than just saying we take no action. I think that sort of flies in the face, and we feel insulted that the work, the promotion, the money raised, and all the work that UCW does for the United Church of Canada is not recognized, it's not appreciated, and I think I speak for a number of UCW people, not only here, but across the country when I say that. And I know you're going to say that it is appreciated, but that's just the feeling, and I will speak against this motion just for that reason only, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Nora, did you want
to? I wonder if I could suggest a friendly amendment that might say that the 43rd General Council refer this proposal to the regions for their consideration and take no further action.
Understanding that it's not that no further action will be taken by the church, but that the court of the 43rd General Council, it will not take further action. But Nora's proposing an amendment to the wording.
So it would say, refer proposal ANW 11 to the regions for their consideration and take no further action. And I understand that's a friendly amendment. I see Larry and Bev have their hands
it's been
waving.
Received as a friendly amendment. So we're going to give our tech team time to get that wording up there. But we are continuing now to discuss the motion as friendly amended. Microphone 3.
Moderator Bill Stedman, Manitou Conference. I was going to come to the mic, but we have so much to do, I refrain. But with Pat's comments and with the high regard I have for her and the UCW, I feel it's important to be here. Taking no action in no way is to suggest we're dismissing either the UCW or their work. The spirit of my mother, who is now 7 years dead, is upon me. And I know that her commitment to the M&S Fund, which was to give significant parts of her estate to the church so that I worked for the M&S Fund for a number of years, reminds me that the UCW is significant in all that they've done. Part of the reason some say we don't need UCW-specific representation, they have blazed the trail for the leadership of women in our church, reflected by the number of women at this court and all courts of the church. So in no way are we dismissing their work. We're really thanking them for the work, and a lot of it has been done. And I think the amendment, which is now incorporated in the motion, clarifies the intent, and I would certainly support it.
Thank you. Are you ready for the... I see that you are, but I also see there's microphone 3.
I appreciate the opportunity to come back, and I thank the General Secretary for making that amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please get your clickers out, folks. So the current wording of our motion is that the 43rd, sorry, could we just thank you, that the 43rd General Council refer proposal ANW 11 to the regional councils for consideration and take no further action, meaning that we as a 43rd General Council take no further action other than to refer it to the regional councils for consideration. So, if you are in favor of this motion, you will press 1. If you are opposed, you will press 2. Please vote now. That's okay. We're just going to take a deep breath and vote now. And that is approved with 96% of the votes. Thank you. I'm turning it back to our facilitation group.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Now we're on to GC43, Faithful Decision Making on Social Justice Issues. What we have heard, groups noted that the proposal was about hearing from marginalized voices. There was support for inclusion and that it should apply to all levels of the church. There was appreciation for the background report. Some questioned how do we determine which voices are prioritized when there are so many groups and priorities. Timely communication was affirmed as important by several groups. One discussion group also noted that timely communication will have implications for staff workloads. Formal partnerships, ecumenical and international, were named as important stakeholders in this issue. General affirmation for and no opposition to this proposal. There were suggestions for consideration in its implementation. The suggested way forward that the 43rd General Council adopt the report ANW3, Faithful Decision Making on Social Justice Issues in the United Church of Canada in its entirety, and direct the General Secretary to implement the recommendations.
All right, so you have the report of the facilitation group, and I'm going to ask you that same question again. Do you feel that they have heard you and that they have accurately captured the conversations from the discussions? So you get to click 1 if you, we'll just wait for the right slide here. We're not, sorry, we're doing the yes/no slide on this one. So just to reiterate, you're going to click 1 if you think that they've heard you accurately and reflected your discussions, or click 2 if you think that they've kind of missed the mark on this one. So please indicate now. And 93% say you got it right. So thank you. I'm now going to ask you the same question I keep asking you. are you ready then to move to a motion with the wording that has been suggested? Then the suggested wording is that the 43rd General Council adopt the report of ANW3, Faithful Decision Making on Social Justice Issues in the United Church of Canada, in its entirety, and direct the General Secretary to implement the recommendations. You're not voting on this as a motion, you're simply voting on, are we going to go to a motion with this as the wording of the motion? So please indicate yes or no now. And you are ready to go to a motion, 97%. So, moved by Bev Kostachuk and seconded by Larry Doyle, that the 43rd General Council adopt the report ANW3 in its entirety and direct the General Secretary to implement the recommendations. Is there any discussion? Microphone 1.
Lorraine Mackenzie Shepherd, Manitoba Northwest Ontario Conference. I appreciate the 8-page report, which covered the summary and research that was put into this. I recommend it highly for everyone to read in the document if they haven't done so already. My understanding is one of the reasons that report was instituted was because of concerns around various positions on an issue that all might be considered faithful. And on page 7 of that report, it notes another principle or criteria. It didn't make it into the top 3, but was approved by the majority of the wider church participants and people in the pews. And the criteria is noted as this: there can often be many different but still faithful perspectives on how to address certain social justice issues, and all of these perspectives need to be considered and debated. This, to me, upholds what I have learned from Elder and former moderator Stan McKay, who has taught me that we need to hold all of the voices around a particular issue together as we listen and take time to find consensus if possible, to sit in that circle, that very difficult fire that we might need to sit in. It might take longer to reach a social justice position or decision, but it might better attend to all of the various voices who are affected by that decision. I would be grateful if this could be, I would move this as an amendment. It could be amended to include this as a 4th criteria for social justice decisions. It would help us with the pipeline decision. It would help us with so many decisions which we as a church ourselves and our partners are not all of one mind on.
So we need the actual wording of the amendment that you are proposing.
So the wording is, or should I say?
Tell us and then make sure it goes to them. Yep.
So I would amend that we add as a 4th criteria to this proposal: there can often be many different but still faithful perspectives on how to address certain social justice issues, and all of these perspectives need to be considered and debated. So that comes directly from the report.
So I just want to be clear about this. We're adopting the report in its entirety. So if it's in the report, it's actually in what we are adopting and directing to the General Secretary to implement the recommendations therein.
It's in the report, it's not in the proposal.
But the proposal is that this motion before us is to adopt the report in its entirety. We're not dealing with the proposal that came to the discussion groups. We're dealing with the motion that's come to the floor, which is different from the proposal that went to the discussion groups.
If you can show the proposal again.
Okay.
Right. So, and this is part of what is new in this process for us. So it takes some getting used to.
Thank you.
What you discussed when you were discussing the proposals that came to the council for discussion have been massaged, have been changed, and there's a new wording that's been offered to us by the facilitation group. So it doesn't necessarily look like exactly what we started with. And so the facilitation group has proposed, and we have now moved, that we adopt the report in its entirety and direct the General Secretary to implement the recommendations. So that's a helpful, and you've sat down, so you look like you're content with that. So, all right, thank you. Thank you for raising that. That helped us get clear. Microphone 3.
Thank you, moderator. Horacio Mesones, international partner. It was noted in the discussion group that international and ecumenical partnerships are key stakeholders. As an international partner, I wonder if that could be reflected in the wording of the motion. And I'm not entitled to make an amendment.
So let me just get clear with, is that also in the report itself, that wording? Or is that?
Yes, thank you, Jordan. Thank again, Horatia, for that comment. We did hear that comment in a couple groups, and we therefore made a note of that in the preamble. But again, we never felt that that would substantially change the recommendation or implementation by the General Secretary in doing the work that needs to be done. So that would not necessarily change this proposal as we have suggested to the court. But I would say that would be something, of course, that we are, in our notes, we have made note of, and we would be asking whoever is implementing it to take careful note of that as well.
And it becomes part of the record of proceeding of this council, because it's been lifted up to us. So thank you for highlighting that again for us, Horacio. Microphone 3.
My name is Hannah Park, and from Manitoba Conference. I'm not intending to make any suggestions to amending the motion. I completely support that motion. I just want to respond to something I heard just ago. Just because it has been expressed to all the people here, I would like to mention that there's the caution that I would like to make around the wording of all voices. They are very faithful, all voices. We really need to uphold. But when we say that all voices are faithful and upheld in our discussion, that's so true. But then with the awareness that there's this certain amount of presence of white privilege and also prevailing the present barriers and possibility of excluding or marginalizing some voices. So when we say that all voices, we need to aware that there's the real experience of exclusion or marginalization and the white privilege.
Thank you. And I saw microphone 1, then 2, then 3.
Tim Bowman, BC Conference. Moderator, I just want to make sure I understood your recent comments. I heard you to say that the General Secretary could also consider what was in the facilitator's report. However, as I understand the motion, the General Secretary is directed simply to consider what was in the initial report and not the facilitator's comments. So could you clarify that for me, please?
Is this in response to my comments to Horacio?
I think so.
Right. What we heard from the facilitation group is that those comments would not change, in fact, the implementation of the recommendations from the report. It's simply background to name that partners have a stake, and that's something that has been affirmed. Okay. But the implementation, I think, of the recommendations from the report wouldn't be impacted by that. It's just a truth.
I see. My understanding was that the recommendation to listen to ecumenical partners was not, in fact, in the initial report that she's to implement. I apologize.
I don't have the whole report right in front of me, but I think it refers to all stakeholders in the decisions. So, yeah, thank you. Microphone 2.
Murray Spear, Alberta Northwest. Madam Moderator, I have a question for clarification and a concern that I've been rereading the report for the last several minutes. I see a great deal of information. I don't see any recommendations. And so until there's clarification about what is actually recommended by the report, I'm not comfortable voting on a motion that includes adopting recommendations when I don't see any recommendations.
Aha. Well, let's get there. Thank you for that, Murray. I would invite us all now to open that report, ANW 11. Or what is the name of the report? Faithful Decision Making. It's actually report number 17 in your workbook. We have a point of order. Mike, keep reading, folks, but let's listen to point of order.
Marjorie Wright, Alberta Northwest. I am confused. If we are adopting the report, what are we doing with the proposal, which does in fact have recommendations in it?
Thank you. That is helpful. We're getting this sorted out.
I can offer a friendly amendment, I think, which would just change a little bit what's before us. If we can put up what's before us again, if it said implement the recommendations of GCE 11, that would capture both the report and the recommendations which were contained in the proposal.
12. 12.
Sorry, 12.
All right, thank you. This is helpful. Point of order, Mike, again.
Susan Reed, Saskatchewan Conference. I believe this is a point of privilege. I am not hearing everyone who is speaking, either from the front or from the microphones. And I know that it's a work in progress to adjust, but I would ask the folks speaking to please speak as close to the microphones as you're able, because I've missed a lot of what's been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Leighton-Brown from Toronto Conference. I think the friendly amendment as currently up on the screen doesn't quite capture what the intent of the friendly amendment is. As worded at the moment, it calls on the General Secretary only to implement the recommendations. The first point raised tried to add a fourth criterion to what was in the recommendation of GCE 12. That was withdrawn because the report included what that would have done. I think the General Secretary is directed to implement both the report and the recommendations of GCE 12.
That's correct, David, and I think I wasn't clear enough. I didn't give it in writing to our folks that are trying to get this, so what it should say, continue having the old wording about the report, and then add to that and the recommendations of GCE 12. I think that will capture it. It's not the most beautiful wording in the world, but I think we all know what's intended there. It's got the reference to the report and the recommendations.
All right, thank you. Super helpful. So we have a friendly and happily amended motion that lifts up the recommendations from the report, but also, or from the GCE 12 proposal, but also lifts up the entire report and the wisdom contained therein for adoption and implementation. And that is the motion before us now that we continue to discuss. Microphone 3.
Deborah Schneider, Toronto Conference. I speak in support of the motion, and I guess this is a curiosity, and I'm not sure what state of the, and where to direct it. But I'm wondering why we wouldn't adopt the recommendations of the report and the proposal for all of our significant decision-making, not simply our social justice decision-making. So I might actually suggest we take out social justice and put all significant decision-making.
Are you suggesting an amendment?
If that seems to be inappropriate, I guess it's a suggestion to consider. I'm not sure if that would be appropriate. If that's the way to go, certainly, to just take out social justice and include all decisions. But I mean, I know there are lots of little decisions about daily life that aren't necessarily going to require a whole panel. So I'm not quite sure how to capture that.
Oh, okay, but I believe maybe I'm not understanding you. The social justice, it's ANW3 Faithful Decision Making on Social Justice Issues, and was the name of the report.
Right. And is
so if we're actually just naming the report, if we take that out, we haven't actually named the report that we want to reference.
So, but are we talking about decision making in regards to social justice issues only, or just that the report comes from that perspective?
So I think the report was done about social justice. I think you make a really good point that why wouldn't we adopt such principles for everything? That wasn't what was captured here, and it would take probably a significant amendment to change it. You might want to offer something as new business that could go on to the executive or something that would broaden it, because it's a little complicated to simply amend it in the way it's been presented, but you've made a really good point, and I heard it.
Okay, so do I need to do what particularly would I need to do going forward?
If you wanted to bring a proposal as new business, talk to the business table
Okay.
and they can walk you through it, but thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 3, then microphone 2.
Thank you so much, moderator. My contribution on social justice issues is to just commend the United Church of Canada for the bold and radical decisions that you have made on social justice issues, and the decisions that maybe you continue making in the future. But my contribution and my humble appeal to this GC is that much as you would want to be addressing these social justice issues within the United Church of Canada, I would like to maybe just appeal that because of the so much things that you do on social justice, how can you be making a huge difference, especially on the international scene and even in other church, organizations? Because you seem to be doing so much within, but how can you, even if you may be like a mustard seed, influence the rest of the world by, allowing all of us to jump on the wagon on which you are driving, so that you can, make others also to get influenced and maybe do some of the things, especially the good things that the United Church of Canada is making. But my contribution was on in the United Church of Canada. Why can't you open it up so that you can even, do it, with others? Although I know that maybe you need to begin with yourselves before you move out, but time has come, because in the past you have recorded so much, and we are hearing and we are so much inspired, but we don't know how you can be of help to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that reminder from our global partners that when we're talking about our work as a church, it's not just here in Canada, it's not just within our own denomination, but we always need to be reminded that we are part of a larger body of Christ, and all of our actions and all of our decisions have impacts on and need to take account of our relatives around the world. And thank you for always holding that before us. Microphone 2.
Eric Lucas from Montreal and Ottawa Conference. I wanted to thank both of you for constantly reminding us about how this process works, and to appeal to my brothers and sisters here today that it is now 10:30, and to please all of us listen to what Jordan and Nora are telling us, to bring forward orientations and ideas about the direction we should be headed, but to allow them to write the policies and bring them back to us. I think we'll find we'll get through things more efficiently. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I see nobody else at microphone, so I think we are ready for the question on this one. So we have a motion before us that the 43rd General Council adopt the report ANW3, Faithful Decision-Making on Social Justice Issues in the United Church of Canada in its entirety, and direct the General Secretary to implement the report and the recommendations in GCE 12. Get those clickers ready. If you are in favor, you will click 1. If you are opposed, you will click 2. Please vote now. And you have approved that with 96% of the vote. So thank you very much. We're going to take a break from this right now. We need a bit of a break, but we're going to move to our intercultural observers to receive some input and reflection from them. And we will come back to the rest of this theme topic later on. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the way you have engaged in this process, which is new for the vast majority of you. And thank you for your patience with it and your willingness to kind of wrestle it out. So we have Sharon Ballantyne with us to offer us some reflections and wisdom for today.
Dear United Church, surely God is in this place. Help me notice. Surely God is in this place. Help us notice. We're in a process, a new process that is scary, aggravating, annoying some of us. But are we remembering? Surely God is in this place. Are we responding to the faithfulness of trusting our God and all the work and all the opportunities we have in this new process? Look at the work of the discussion and the voices that have come forward. Look at the voices that will continue to go forward. We are charged as decision makers here, but it's not the end of our work. It is the very beginning. Our voices will continue to rise up, and the information we gather and we collect here will help us rise up and move further. So trust this process that over 3 years God has brought us to. And I invite us to breathe deeply. In my congregation, we have a process of 3 breaths. First, let us take a breath to just let go. Release the tension. Shake it off like a dog. Breathe in and collectively breathe out. In our second deep breath, let's breathe in our sharing. God is in this place, in us, with us, through us. We share this unique time, this moment in all its diversity, And we have to recognize the gift of this time, this unique gift of being together. This moment will never be repeated. Breathe it in and let it out. Third, let's breathe in our prayer that God will open us up, clearing our eyes, our ears, our throats, to be open to the wisdom God speaks to us. May God speak to us what we need. Breathe it in and let it out. We come in gratitude and thanksgiving, wearing the many lenses through which we view the world. Some lenses are life-giving, some lenses are life-limiting, and some lenses are life-harming. There's a lot of work on our tables, a lot of worry, a lot of passion and compassion. We might feel all are at our table. We might feel all are welcome, but what does that mean for us? What are our lenses, our limitations, our barriers, obstacles, and perspectives that we are reluctant to consider? Maybe we're convinced. We know the lenses that are just right. We know what will work. We know what's the right fit. We know the style. How many times do our lenses have blinders, or at least blind spots? What lenses do we seriously need to be challenged by? God gives all eyes to see, even eyes without physical sight. God's light has to be the lamp. We need to be prepared and humbled to be each other's sighted guides, filling in the parts our eyes miss, don't see, or what has become distorted. Two paths, or many paths, one journey, our pilgrimage. Our village wants to grow and thrive. We must do all we can to be good ancestors. As a body of faith, Christ's body, we are not here to make decisions based on our personal lenses, limited by whatever isms we might represent, but we are confronted here and now to consider all the lenses that will forever change our perspectives and the way that we view life, the lenses of learning, understanding, knowing. Sometimes it's a difficult lens to accept that we cannot unknow some things, though sometimes we try to get ourselves a different lens prescription, to adjust the view, to change the acuity, to play around with those transitional lenses, those with and without lines. Aren't we at a place of crossings? Check in on those lenses. Are we being nearsighted, short-sighted, far-sighted, or what's the distance? When and where do we refuse to see at all? We've all heard something about rose-colored glasses. We have to admit to all the ways we fail, first attempts in learning, and be willing to listen, to receive the great wisdom, the experiences, the stories of others. Many seeing answers, while some of us can't even figure out what the questions are. What are we called to hear, learn, remember? What are we called to say? How will we feed others with compassion and hope? In humility, take off the glasses that limit you to seeing yourself. Risk faith, dare hope. Look around you to sit together, hearts open, vulnerable, scared, scarred, broken, and crying out for healing. Listen, hear, Take up the lenses of brothers and sisters in all creation. We are a people of faith, all that has been or is yet to become in the life and work of United Church of Canada. To be church together requires much of us. We have particular lenses to look through that we hold dear to us. We have to recognize what's discolored, fuzzy, out of focus, what is too close, and what is being blurred. What do we see clearly? What sharp clarity, life-altering things does God compel us to share? New visions to find voice. Are we aiming for equity? How will we aim for equity? Are we really committed to living out our commitments? How will we live out our commitments? Are we questioning biases? How will we question biases? Are we challenging assumptions? How will we challenge assumptions? Are we noticing who's missing? How will we notice who's missing? Do we truly value all the voices? How will we value all the voices? I ask and I challenge, hard and hurting, healing and hope-filled. What do I hold on to? What do I need to hold on to? Through what lens am I seeing? What have I let go of? Perhaps even have torn from me what has been taken, what needs to be reclaimed. Through what lens am I seeing? We all have to accept with grace and humility the many lenses that are hard, that we struggle to relate to, admitting, I don't get it. And instead of getting stuck or trying to get out of it, to get into it, to wrestle with what needs to be learned, heard, shared. We have to come together to have these many conversations through our praying, worshiping, feasting, fellowshipping, our deep and intentional listening, discussing, discerning, and when needed, deciding. We are compelled, required to listen more deeply, more closely, more powerfully, and compassionately, to receive the stories of others, to receive their truths, that we might continue to wipe our eyes to see more clearly in a new way, a better way, a different way. I read something somewhere about getting specks out of eyes, logs out of eyes. Have you heard something about that? If we believe that God is in our midst and granting us eyes to see, to really see, our vision can clear into the new way of being, that we are enough, that we are beloved, and beloved by one another in new and profound ways, seeing each other, sharing vision. Listen, really hear, speaking, really receiving the stories and storytellers, and embracing each other to share the truth. We must constantly ask ourselves, through what lens am I looking? May we exercise holy manners in the grace, the challenge, bringing all that we have, all that we are to this space and really meaning it. We need the eyes that go beyond anything physical, seeking vision that demands us to experience God, each other, life, and creation itself in the lens of love, the sacred energy that connects us with Mother Earth, flowing through us physically, emotionally, spiritually. What lens will it take to move us, heart, mind, and action? How will we get out of the way to stop seeing through our own narrow perspectives and invite the lens of God to speak to us, to risk faith and dare hope, to commit without reservation to God, mighty creator that makes the impossible possible. We offer gifts and strengths, vulnerabilities. We are a constantly shifting and changing church, vibrant, life-giving, thriving, and hopeful. God is renewing us, filling us with all we need to be church together, breaking down borders and boundaries, being strong partners, needing each other, belonging, believing. Be bridge builders. Our loving God, be thou my vision. Be thou our vision. For surely, God, you are present in this place. Make us notice. Amen.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So before we take our break and head off to our discussion groups, Alan's just going to give us some clear directions about that very briefly.
Very briefly, we are, again, a little behind, but we're fine. We're fine. We have discussion sessions, then we have some breakout listening sessions, then we have discussion sessions. So you're not coming back here until after supper. To find out where to go, you can look on the website, the generalcouncil43.ca website, find this item, go to agenda at the top, or if you're on your mobile, the hamburger or the red lines at the top, you push that, then you go to agenda. Then when you push on the day, you find the session, and then you get discussion session, and if you scroll down, it lists the locations. It will also, to our best ability, be on the screens in here at the beginning of the session, so that if you're unsure, you can come in here and look as well. They're changing a little bit because the people who go to school here have to go to class in the same class every week. They care more about them than about us. Fair. One of the rooms is ERC. That does not show on the map that we published, but we do have UB on our map, and you just go a little bit farther. The stewards know that, and they will be out and about at all of these times to help you get there. Please start talking about the next thing that you didn't finish with. So if you governance stuff, we can try and leave, and we'll move to ministry personnel. If you did ministry personnel, which I know a group did, then feel free to move on to right relations, and your host should have an order, and it's also the order that's in the rough outline that I gave in the agenda items. So that's what we're going to do. Don't stress. We have time. You're figuring stuff out. Work as best you can, but don't worry about it.
And make sure you go for your lunch at 12:30.
Yes, lunch at 12:30, and there is a reminder to discussion hosts. There is a intercultural, a theological reflector at the end of the last session, or in the last session. So you can make sure you include those folks. Somebody's been named for that.
Have a splendid rest of your day. Friends, we'll see you after supper back in this room at 7:30.
Was it free?
Sorry. No, yeah, go talk to him because he probably just